Welcome to Brewmaster. I'm Sarah, and I'm your host and brewmaster. On this show, we find homebrewers and give them the opportunity to work with a professional. They get to learn some of the science behind brewing while I try to up their homebrew game. Today we're brewing with Phil, and we're making a light ale with a hop finish. Later on, we're catching up with Tommy from Hometown Brew for the tasting. This is Brewmaster. Welcome to Brewmaster. I'm your host, Sarah, and today we're joined by Phil. Phil, you want to tell me a little bit about yourself and your history with brewing?
Sure. I started way back in the UK, got to be 40 years ago. Wasn't very much in the way of home brewing shops and equipment, but kind of hodgepodged a few things together and produced a sort of a beer that, being at that age, it didn't really matter what it was like. I brewed a beer. But when I emigrated to Canada, I left all my equipment behind, and I just basically started up again in the last couple of years.
That's awesome. I know what you mean. My first beer was not that good either. It was, extract out of a little jug mixed with water, and I made beer.
Yeah.
So what kind of system do you use at home?
So I have basically just a large pot on the stove. I use a little bit of grains, half a pound of grains, which I mash first. Then I add extract to that and hops, and then let that boil for a while. Then that comes off, and then I cool it down with ice and cold water.
Okay.
And then yeast, and away we go.
Nice.
Basically.
Nice.
Simple.
Yeah. And what's your favorite kind of beer to brew and drink?
I've been trying desperately to get my favorite type of beer, which is a lighter style of IPA. I like citrusy, I like hops, but I don't like being overpowered with them like the West Coast
and
stuff like that.
Yeah. And you don't want that big punch of bitterness either.
No. Well, I don't mind that a little bit, but I don't want it to hit me in the face.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah. You want
it on the back end of it.
Nice, mellow drinking beer.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you brought a sample of your beer for us to try.
I did.
All right, so let's give that a taste now. We got little taster glasses. Since you made it, I'll let you pour.
Thank you.
So is this your attempt at the light, easy drinking?
This is my third attempt. The first one came out very malty, quite dark, which I don't mind a dark beer, but it was quite malty, and had no real bitterness on the back end. No hop flavour.
Right.
The second one was a little too light.
I love the color.
And this is kind of an in-betweeny.
Okay.
It's still not where I want it to be, but it's actually not too bad.
Nice. Well, let's give this a little smell. Oh yeah, you've got some citrusy hops in there.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, mosaic.
One of my favorites. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. I see what you mean. There's a little bit of malt still on the front end there.
Yeah.
You don't really get that hop kick at the end.
No.
So you're looking to sort of bounce that up a little bit more. So you happy with the color?
Yes, it can be lighter or darker. It doesn't, but I quite like that.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
So you're not so much concerned about color. You're more concerned about getting that nice balance.
Yeah.
Mellow malt and a bit of a hot punch at the end.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So I actually bought a commercial example that we can taste as well. That way we can sort of compare the two.
Okay.
I went for a session IPA because the type of beer you're talking about, it's really hard to find a commercial example that really hits that on the head. But I was hoping with the session IPA you would have that nice kick of hops, but mellow out the malt a little bit. And I mean, you can see in general, just with the color.
Yeah.
But let's give this guy a taste and see what we think. Oh yeah. Yeah, it has got a big hop aroma up front. So a little drier.
Yes, which is
what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So you're doing a partial mash.
Yes.
So today we're actually going to take you through an all grain. One of the things I find moving from a partial mash brewing to all grain is you just have so much more control over what your malt is doing, because you're adding that extra step and taking control of it yourself, and you can adjust to dry things out much easier than when you use a malt extract where someone's already done that step for you. And there's not much you can do at that point to dry things out, or to give you that you have to just put a whole bunch of hops in there to sort of counterbalance that maltiness that you get from the extracts. So we're gonna do an all grain brew. Very excited that it's your first one. And let's talk a little bit about the ingredients we have for you. We're going very, very simple on your malts because you're not looking for a malty beer.
Okay.
So 2-row is my favorite base malt. So this is the one that's gonna give you most of your sugars that are gonna turn into your alcohol.
Okay.
I also highly recommend just give it a taste, because that'll give you an idea of what flavor you're gonna get in your beer. Now it'll change, of course, through the mashing process, but you can taste that sort of bready, crackery background note. So it won't overpower anything. And the more that you dry it out, the less you're gonna have of that flavor in there. We're also gonna add a little bit of Munich in. So this is gonna add a little bit of color. It's also going to add just a hint of sweetness. So you notice when you taste that one, it's less bready, a little bit, just a hint of sweetness on the end of that. See how different those two are? Now you actually can use this as a base malt if you were going for a maltier beer, but in general, I like the 2-row for that. The only other malt that we're adding in is a little bit of carafoam. It's just gonna give you some body, because I personally really enjoy that when you've got a sort of hoppy beer going on. A little bit of malt body to counterbalance. Yeah. Now for a bittering hop, we're just using Zeus. It's just a high alpha acid. You know, it's not really gonna contribute much more than just a little bit of bitterness. But for your aroma hop, I decided to go with Motueka. So this is a New Zealand hop, very tropical, little bit of that sort of resiny flavor that you can get with hops, which I find a lot of these have that at the very end, you can just taste that nice hit of the bitterness and that little bit of body, for lack of a better term. And what you want to do with hops, if you just smell them, you're not going to get much. It's going to smell green. But if you really want to know what your hop is going to smell like, you're just going to rub it between your hands. And then the heat of your hands will release the essential oils. And then give your hands a sniff.
Ooh.
Yeah, so see how you can get those tropical sort of pineapple, a little bit of mango coming out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so if you're trying a hop that you've never tried before, I highly recommend doing a quick little hop rub, and then you can tell if the aroma is going to be something that you're looking for.
For clearing, should you use Irish moss or just...
That is sort of the most commonly used findings or clarifying agent.
Yeah.
So personally, I don't use it. We are going to use it today just because the style of beer you're looking for is a little bit more clear in general. Yeah. So Irish moss, I put it in the last 15 minutes of the boil.
Okay.
Other than that, I really just use thyme to clarify.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Mother Nature.
Exactly. Exactly. That's all you need, right?
Yeah. Perfect.
So now we're gonna go and mash in. We're gonna have your first all grain brew.
Awesome.
You really want to get underneath and try and bring up some of that hot stuff on the bottom. Welcome back to Brewmaster. We're about to brew a light ale with a hop finish with novice brewer Phil. Let's get started. So we're gonna mash in now. Now you told me that you do partial mashes. Because with this show we're trying to sort of up everyone's game a little bit, I thought we could go through a very basic all grain brew.
My name is Philip McLaren. I started brewing way back in the UK, probably 40 years ago. But when I immigrated to Canada, obviously I didn't bring the equipment with me, and I've just started up again about 3 years ago.
You already have a big kettle, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Big pot. So this is your mash tun. So it's basically just a 5-gallon cooler. We've got a bazooka little strainer in there and a ball valve, and that's pretty much it. The nice thing is they make all these parts to fit into water coolers because they know that this is how a lot of people start all grain brewing. So you don't have to buy a lot of fancy equipment. And then I personally like to throw a big hop bag in there. Just makes cleanup easier. So you can pull all your grains out at one time once you're done your mash. So we're just going to put that in place, which just makes mashing in easier. And that's pretty much it. And we're ready to mash in.
What I'm actually looking for, which is a lighter style of IPA, a nice finish on the hop end, a little bit of a malt start to it, a medium color range. We'll see how that goes.
So I've got the water heated up here. We want it about 3 degrees warmer than your mash temperature because you're gonna lose all that heat once you dump the water in. And then of course your grain is gonna cool it off even more. So we'll dump the water in, then I'll dump the grain, you can stir it, and we'll be all mashed in.
Perfect.
All right. So Phil wanted a nice, light, easy drinking ale with a hop finish. I was aiming for about 5% alcohol. Now, the amount of grain you use dictates how much alcohol content you're gonna get, because the grain becomes sugar, which then becomes alcohol. So for his recipe, we went for 3.4 kilograms of 2-row, which is your base malt. That's gonna give you most of your extracted sugar. 1 kilogram of Munich, which is also considered a base malt, but it also gives a little bit of color, and 1/2 kilogram of carafoam for body. Because he wanted a nice, easy drinking light ale, we decided to mash at 64 degrees Celsius. So your mash temperature will sort of dictate how sweet or how dry the beer ends up. The general range is between 64 and 67 degrees Celsius. Closer to 64, you're gonna get a drier beer. Closer to 67, it's gonna be sweeter with more body. So that looks perfect.
Okay.
Do you want to grab that thermometer and we'll see if our temperature is good? I'll take that from you. So we're about 67. So we're gonna add just a little bit of cold water. So I'll give you that back. And we're just gonna try and drop it down a few degrees, and it'll help thin things out a bit. There. And if you're adding cold or hot, you really want to get underneath and try and bring up some of that hot stuff on the bottom. Perfect. All right, let's check that temperature again. Bang on 64, exactly what we were aiming for. So now we just take these guys off. And we throw our lid on just to help keep that in. Set a timer for an hour, and we're good.
Perfect. Oh, it's been a lot of fun. Very informative, very casual, very easy to follow. Working with Brewmaster Sarah has been an awful lot of fun.
Brewing with Phil was great. He was really kind of surprised to find out that it's actually easier than what he thought it was gonna be. Okay, so an hour's gone by. Our mash is done. So we've got our sparge water all warmed up here. I think we can safely turn him off. We'll open her up. So I'm gonna get you to do the sparging. So sparging is basically the act of putting water on top of your mash to pull all of the sugars out.
Kind of wash everything through.
Exactly, exactly. So if you were to just collect the liquid that was in here, it would be very, very high gravity. So basically, yeah, it's gonna rinse all those sugars out, rinse all those proteins out, get all that wonderful flavor into your final product. All the good stuff, exactly. So today we're gonna batch sparge. So basically what we're gonna do is we're just gonna slowly open this guy down here and start collecting our wort. And you're just gonna start grabbing water and putting it on top. And because we're batch sparging, you can go as fast as you want. And we're probably gonna go through all the water over there. So you wanna raise your mash temperature up to about 76 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
And that just stops all of the enzyme activity. That's why I like my sparged water to be really nice and hot. We have it up at about 80 degrees because it's going to warm things up as you're sparging. And it does lighten up the more you sparge because you're sort of rinsing the color out too. Perfect. That should get us right to where we want to be. So we'll just open this up all the way, let it finish draining. Now we're gonna lose some volume during the boil, so that's when we cut it. So we've collected all of our wort and we're ready to get everything boiling. And let's get this burner going. Okay, so now that burner's going, we just gotta wait for this to come up to a boil and then we'll add our bittering hops.
Okay. The one thing that really struck me is, geez, I can actually do this at home the proper way rather than having to use extracts. So for the investment of a few dollars, maybe I can make a better style beer than I have been in the past.
So we're almost up to a boil here. I like to add my bittering hops now. Because if you wait for a rolling boil, this is gonna boil over on you. Yeah. So our bittering hops are this one right here. So you wanna just come over So once it came to the boil, I used 13 grams of Zeus with 11% alpha acids for the bittering hop. Now the alpha acids are what gives bitterness to the beer. It comes out in the boiling process. That's how you actually extract it from the hops. As you can see, adding those is already bringing it up to a boil even faster. So basically we're gonna set a timer for an hour and then we'll finish up this beer.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so we've been boiling for an hour now. We're ready to finish up this beer. Okay. So first things first, let's cut the fire. Now, this is what we're gonna use to chill. It's basically a copper wire. So copper is a great conductor of heat both ways. So it's not sanitized yet, so we're just gonna pop it in the beer.
So this is just a normal
It's just a normal copper wire. Exactly. Yeah. Regular plumbing that I picked up and just bent into a coil. Now we can add our finishing hops. So those you can feel free to just sprinkle right in. For the aroma hop, we went with 30 grams of Motueka. I didn't really check the alpha acid content on there because it's in for such a short period of time, not during the actual boil. So you don't really extract that much bitterness from it. And Motueka hops gives you like a nice tropical and citrusy flavor with a little bit of stone fruit. And we're just gonna give that about 5 minutes to make sure that the hops have released all of their essential oils. And that'll also make sure that our copper coil has completely sanitized from the heat. Yeah. But everything that comes afterwards needs to be sanitized, as I'm sure you know. Oh, yeah. So we've got our fermenter right here that's already sanitized, and a funnel and colander that we'll be using. And of course our airlock is also sanitized. So that's what's going to allow the CO2 to escape during fermentation and keep all the oxygen out. I think we've had that sitting for about 5 minutes now. So I'm just gonna get some water going. So you can see our coil is going this way, right? So that's how the water is flowing. Yeah. So I'm gonna get you to grab the spoon there, and you're actually gonna stir in the opposite direction.
Oh, okay.
And that will just speed up the rate of cooling. And you can stir pretty vigorously, and I'm just gonna keep an eye on our temperature. So obviously it starts cooling down very quickly at first, and then it slows the longer that you're in there. We're already down to 70 degrees.
So what temperature are we looking at?
So depending on the yeast that you're using, dramatically impacts what temperature. We're actually using a Kvike strain, so it's popular here now, been popular in sort of Norway, Scandinavia for quite a while. Their yeast actually ferment really hot. So we only have to go down to about 34, 40 degrees.
So it doesn't kill the yeast?
No, it's actually very happy at that temperature. Okay, so you can see there we've hit a nice 40 degrees. Yeah. So it'll continue to cool a bit with the next few stages, so we can actually turn the water off now. Okay. So now we're done with the copper coil. We can just take it out and put it to the side. We're gonna transfer this into our carboy and then get it ready to pitch our yeast. So the whole time you're brewing, you're trying not to oxygenate, not to add a lot of turbulence. And then you get to this point and you want as much turbulence as possible.
And oxygen.
And oxygen, exactly. Now all we have to do, pitch our yeast, and we're all done.
Perfect.
So for the yeast for Phil's beer, we went with a Voss Kvike. Even though it gives you a nice clean flavor, it also adds a little bit of orange and citrus flavors.
I'm really looking forward to trying the beer. I think Sarah has nailed it on the head as to what I'm looking for. And being a brewmaster, she knows exactly where she's at. She knows the hops and the malts. So I'm excited. I can't wait to come back and try this beer and see how we go from there.
And let's give her a taste.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Good health.
Homebrewer Phil's Light Ale with the hop finish has finished fermenting, aging, and carbonating. Let's give this beer a taste. Welcome back to Homebrew Master. All of our beers are done and we're ready for the moment everyone's been waiting for, the tasting. Our guest taster today is Tommy DeVos from Hometown Brew, one of the co-founders. And we're working with our homebrewer Phil. And we've produced sort of a style that you don't typically find. We were going for an easy drinking ale with a nice hop finish. So Tommy, why don't you tell us a little bit about Hometown?
Yeah, so I'm a co-founder, one of three, of Hometown Brewing Company. Been around for 5 years. We're actually having our 5th anniversary coming up next Friday.
Nice.
It's very exciting here in Norfolk. It's our 3rd year that we've opened up our physical location. It's outdoors, it's beautiful to visit at Long Point Eco Adventures, and yeah, just happy to be a part of the scene here in Norfolk County.
Nice. So what kind of brews do you guys normally make?
So when we started, our big thing was starting with easy drinking beers that are accessible and then kind of ramping up from there. So we have our Southern Ale, which is is an easy drinking ale, Southern Light, a lighter version, and then our Blue County Blueberry Saison was our first one.
Nice.
With blueberries from our own fields and stuff. So it's a very effervescent and flavorful Saison with 10% blueberry juice that we grow ourselves.
Awesome, that's fantastic. Yeah. So what do you think makes Hometown unique?
I think it's the family story.
Yep.
That we kicked it off together and have been kind of running it ever since. And just having that as well as having our like unique outdoor experience of our location too. I think those two things paired together make sure that everyone has a great time and a great beer.
Nice. And how many taps do you guys have?
So we have 5 taps there.
Okay. And are they always rotating, or you have some standards on there?
So people don't like it when we take off our light or our ale,
yeah.
So they'll stay on. Our IPA does quite well. And then, yeah, we tend to do a lot of different fruit flavors. So we have our lime and our shandy and our blueberry and a cherry sometimes that rotate. So 3 kind of always the same and 2 different flavors.
A little bit of seasonals going on. Yeah. Fantastic. What do you think about the sort of style that we're working with today?
Yeah, no, I love it. I like the fact that you're taking something easy drinking, like I was saying, that's kind of our thing, and making your own spin on it, not worrying about creating a specific style, just creating something that people like. So
exactly. I'm excited. Yeah, me too. So let's get to tasting this beer.
I'm excited.
All right. All right, so let's get to tasting this beer. So normally when we do a tasting, I usually look at the appearance first. Now, here's where I messed up. You wanted a clear beer. I like hazy beers, and I completely forgot to put the Irish moss in when we brewed this. So,
oh well.
Color's still lovely.
I like it.
Yeah, you can see even at the bottom how it is clearing up a little bit. So if we gave it another week or two, most of that haze would probably drop right out. Yeah. So let's check the aroma.
It's definitely a hop.
So we use the Motueka hop in this one. So New Zealand, nice and fruity, which I feel like you're definitely getting some of that aroma.
Get the fruity.
Yeah. A little bit of that tropical sort of fruit that you get with a lot of the New Zealand hops, right? And let's give her a taste.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, good health. That's rather pleasant.
You enjoy that?
That's rather pleasant. Yes. I'm enjoying it too much, actually.
Fair enough. I do like how it is that sort of smooth ale, pretty easy drinking, and you just get that little kick of the hop at the end.
Just at the back end of it, yeah, for sure. It doesn't hit you in the head straight away, but it's definitely there in the back. It's nice. And you just say it's a beautifully smooth.
Lovely.
Hazy or not, it's delightful.
I think it's quite good. It's stable, like it's very smooth, it's very easy, and then there's a lot of bubbles at the front. It seems to like stay the taste at the front of my mouth as I'm drinking it. It's really good.
Nice. And I like how you get a little bit of that fruitiness from the hops, but then at the end you get just that little kick of the bitterness to sort of
cleanse the palate and get ready for the next one.
Exactly, exactly. So Phil, if you could change anything other than the clarity?
I actually don't think I would.
No?
That is exactly what I was looking for. If you remember mine that I was trying to do was a little too malty.
Yep.
And then the one we tried that was, I think that was a session.
Yeah, it was a session IPA.
Yeah. So that was a little too...
A little too much of the hops going on, yeah.
And this is a nice balance between the two.
Nice.
I love it.
I'm so happy you like it. I think I'm going to blow away.
Now I've got nothing to experiment with. No, but it's delightful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Well, if you did want to experiment with it, what you could do is use this as your base recipe and then play with all the different hops.
That's what I'm going to ask you for, is the exact... And then
absolutely.
I can say, try a little bit less of this, a little bit more of that, or maybe bring that in. Yeah, for sure.
Because even if you like one, you can always tweak it and then discover that you like it even more.
Yeah, for sure. But this is, so I had Phil Swill 1, 2, and 3. This is Phil Swill defined. It's delightful. It's lovely. Thank you.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Thank you both for joining us today.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you enjoyed the beer.
Thank you.
It's inspired me to change the way I'm brewing too. I used to use extracts as well as grains. Now I'm just going to go full grain, but I'm going to set myself up with the simple materials and equipment that Sarah showed me. Yeah, I'm inspired.